I am not going to do the standard greeting this time. And when you see what we're covering today, you'll understand why. Because this episode's subject matter is very heavy and involves psychological trauma, drowning, claustrophobic atmospheres, and child death. This is Blue Heelers. Blue Heelers was one of the longest-running police dramas on Australian TV, running from 1994 to 2006. The series revolves around the officers of the local police station in the fictional small town of Mount Thomas. Much like shows like Law & Order, a majority of the cast of characters rotated out over time. The primary focus of the show was on everyday policing matters, both major and mundane. One of the major draws of the show was looking at the psychological toll the events had on the officers as they went about their duties. This is one of those stories. Season 4, Episode 5, Reports of Damage and Loss. The episode begins with this.
Look at me! Look at me! Look at me!
A massive thunderstorm is raining down on Mount Thomas, and the officers are dealing with the flooding and leaks as best they can when the two officers we saw, Nick Schultz and Adam Cooper, come in, soaking wet and not looking well.
I lost my hat.
Talk about dragged through a hedge backwards.
Yeah, let's go get cleaned up.
Cooper, what's going on? What's happened?
But the lost hat is clearly not the problem. These are not the actions of someone who only lost a hat. Meanwhile, the station chief, Sergeant Croydon, asks Cooper what happened.
So, you're driving slowly.
And then this kid just came out of nowhere.
You hit him.
Her. It was a little girl. No, I didn't hit her. I slammed on the brakes and I pulled the car over just by a few feet, I think.
So what happened?
Is Nick all right?
Nick is not all right. And Cooper isn't either, as he flips out when Croydon begins calling for a doctor to come look at him. And we get more clues as to what happened.
She just came out of nowhere. Wasn't waving her arms or anything. I hit the brakes and I pulled the car over, but I didn't look at the shoulder. I should have looked at the shoulder.
What shoulder?
Of the road. I should have radioed before I got out of the car.
Schultz got out of the car and talked to the girl, who pointed off the side of the road. Cooper got out to tell Schultz to get out of the middle of the road. Schultz heads off in the direction the girl pointed, while Cooper stays with her. Back in the current time, Croydon goes to talk to Schultz, but initially can't find him, only finding Schultz's uniform in the still-running shower and blood on the bathroom mirror. Croydon eventually finds Schultz and tries to get some answers.
Who's Jenny? I'm not getting much sense out of Cooper.
Well, you never do you, really?
So who is Jenny?
There was a kid on the road.
Yeah, well, Cooper told me that much. He said he nearly hit her.
Yeah, he nearly hit her for 6, Adam. I got out of the car and I started yelling at this kid on the road. You know, what are you doing on the road? It's raining. Your parents know where you are, in the whole act. And she started to cry. And it was not because of what I was saying to her. Sort of crying, you know, there's something wrong.
The girls were walking along the bank of the creek when it collapsed, sending both of them into the water near an irrigation pipe. The girl managed to get back onto the road, but her sister Jenny did not. It was then that Schultz made a grisly discovery.
I went on top of that, and I sort of looked in, and There she was in there. And there was a branch at the opening of it, and the hood of her jacket, it was caught on the branch. And she was screaming. She was screaming at me to help her. She called me, "Sir, help me, sir, help me, sir, help me."
Schultz and Cooper got a rope and tied one end to a nearby road sign and the other end to Schultz. While Schultz went to go in to try to rescue Jenny from the pipe, he sent Cooper to go radio for help. Cooper took off, and as a result, the rope somehow slackened and pushed Schultz further into the pipe.
Adam, he took off, you know, old quick-foot Cooper. He must have knocked my hat off, you know, because it fell into the pipe and past this kid, and she was screaming still, and I lost my hat.
However, Cooper had a problem of his own.
A gum tree fell through and smashed her garage roof.
I should get changed. So I ran back up to the road, and it was gone. The car. So I stood in the road in the rain, and I looked up and down, and there wasn't anybody, and there was no car. It was gone. It was there. But it was off the road, in this lake. It was on a dam thing that was there.
It rolled off the road.
It just collapsed. The whole side of the road had just washed out. The whole side of the road was gone. And the car had rolled off and down into this lake. It was under the water. And I'd put her inside. The kid from the road, I'd put her inside.
Yeah. While Schultz was still trying to get Jenny out of the pipe, Cooper dove into the lake trying to get the other girl out of the car. He manages to do so, but...
But then I couldn't get up the bank because it was too steep. And there was water and mud and crap running down off the road. And this kid was hurt. I didn't know how hurt she was. You know. All I knew is that I had to get her to some help. And Nick was on the other side with a little kid in the train. And I didn't know what to do.
Back at the pipe, Schultz tried to keep the girl calm, all the while unaware of what happened to Cooper. And then...
Oh, she'd stopped screaming then. She just stopped screaming. She had gone all relaxed, you know, like it's like holding a bird or something. It was just there. But Jesus, she was a brave little girl. She didn't scream. She didn't. She's a real little darling. I said, "You look at me. You look at me. Just look at me. Just look at me."
Maybe she was already dead.
While this was going on, Cooper was rushing the other girl somewhere where he could try to get help and contact the station. Meanwhile, Schultz was beginning to experience the first stages of hypothermia.
The pain in my hand. The pain in my hand came back, and I thought, yes, there's some feeling there, so it's going to be okay. We're going to get through here. And I was just reaching out, you know, like, come on, you little try. Come on, you just hang on there. And I was hanging on, and this pain was fantastic because, you know, I was just there like that, and we're going to get you out. We're going to get you out of here, kiddo. And then this pain starts moving down the arm, digging into my hand, going down to my fingers. And it was the old reefer jacket, you know? The zip was digging into my palm, and it was going away. And that meant she was slipping. And she was gone.
So now we know what happened. But that's only half the story.
I stood up and I went over to the other side of the road because there, lying on the road, was my jacket. At least I found my jacket.
With the whole story, other members of the squad head out to work with search and rescue to find Jenny, while Schultz and Cooper get changed into dry clothes and try to cope with the events so far.
Look at me! Look at me! Look at me!
So it would appear that Jenny has been found, and so has Schultz's hat. And we do get some good news when Cooper gets word that the girl he saved is going to be just fine. But then Schultz comes into the room, and it would appear the strain of trying to keep it together through all this has finally proven to be too much for him.
What about Jenny's parents? We better do one for her, hey?
Come on, Nick. Dash
Do
told
you
us
remember
what
Jenny?
happened.
She was the girl on the pipe.
Dash has told us what happened.
That's a bloody miracle because Dash wasn't even there.
Adam told me what happened.
I bet you he told you what happened. You tell him what you did? How you ran away and you panicked? Did you tell him that?
Croydon tells Schultz what happened to Cooper, and it's revealed that Cooper couldn't get a hold of the station as the storm had blown down several trees, cutting the phone lines. Cooper managed to get to a nearby farmhouse where he sent the family's son up the road to call for help, while he and the farmer wrapped the girl in blankets and put her in the hen house to raise her body temperature. Once he knew the girl was safe, he ran back to the creek. He was gone for only about 5 minutes. PJ, the senior detective we saw earlier with Schultz's hat, returns with the hat and some bad news.
Mate, had your hat?
Yeah, beauty.
Yeah, it's wedged under a log. You might want to get that dry cleaned, eh? Yeah. Her name was Jennifer Walford.
How'd you know that?
Well, it was on a label inside a jacket.
She's, Yes, a shame.
And things come full circle when it turns out the report of a tree crashing through someone's garage we heard about earlier came in from the mother of the two girls. She's just noticed that both are missing. And Cooper goes to tell Schultz.
She's dead. And I saw her die, Adam. I saw her die. And my best has been bugger all. And I haven't got the guts to blame myself. So I blame you. I blamed you. I'm sorry.
When the other two officers tell them they're going to see the parents, Cooper and Schultz decide to do it themselves. Croydon raises objections, but Cooper has a counter-argument.
Might be the best way for us to get through this.
I want you back here in an hour for that debriefing.
I don't really talk about my political beliefs on this show, largely because they're irrelevant to the subject matter. However, in this case, I need to say something, and it can easily be misconstrued either deliberately or accidentally. So I need to give you some context about where I stand on the political spectrum. Within the context of United States politics, I identify as a liberal, but I don't necessarily toe the party line on a lot of the hot button issues. For example, I am against the idea of banning guns. I think people should in fact have the right to own guns if they want to. However, I also advocate for stringent background checks, restrictions on who can own one. I'd prefer to see even some sort of psychological analysis being done before anyone is allowed to purchase one. Likewise, when it comes to law and order, I tend to usually side with the police. Now, I know how that sounds, especially these days, with what seems to be constant abuses of power by police officers across the country. Hell, that just happened here in Salt Lake. I am firmly against police brutality in any form. Firmly against that. And I believe that whenever an incident of this happens, it should be thoroughly investigated and the officer punished if it's found they are in the wrong. It doesn't matter if the brutality was race motivated, whether it was just because somebody thought they weren't respecting his authority, or if it's just an asshole cop on a power trip. Those instances need to be investigated and need punishment dealt out without the thin blue line protecting the offender. On the other side of that coin, however, it's easy to forget, especially when stories like this break and emotions run high, that police officers are also human beings with the same emotions and weaknesses that civilians are prey to. Their training should enable them to keep cooler heads in a crisis, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And we need to occasionally remember that police officers tend to see the worst of humanity all the time. And sometimes, like this episode shows, they also have to see that the universe can be a cold, uncaring place. That sometimes there is no justice, there is no right, and there is no way to fix it. And in those instances, all you can do is put on your hat, break the news, and hope that maybe someday things will seem normal again. In full disclosure, I have only watched this one episode of Blue Healers for this review, but it is a powerful one. There's no crime here, just a tragedy brought on by nature's fury and a run of extremely bad luck. The performances from everyone in this episode are powerful and understated, with William McInnes as Nick Schultz being the major standout. McInnes' performance is utterly convincing to show how much this incident has affected Schultz and how badly he's trying to keep himself together and failing. Likewise, Damian Walsh Howling's turn as Cooper is just as intense, but where Schultz's agony is manifest as anger, Cooper's is through regret and fear. Both performances show how much Schultz and Cooper have been affected by this, and it wouldn't surprise me if these events affected these characters further on in the series. As I said, I didn't really look at any of the other episodes in the series for this review to compare them to this episode, but if the quality of the rest of the series is anywhere near the quality of this episode, then it's really not hard to see why this series lasted for 12 seasons and became one of Australia's most successful police dramas. Episodes do show up on YouTube from time to time if you're curious and you don't have any other method of watching the series, whether through DVD or other means. So you can check it out there if nothing else. Next time we'll get back to the funny, I promise. I'm Dubious Khan. Join me next time for another trip into the Idiot Box.